FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Thanks, Nighthawk. You're back with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out. I told you it was only a short break. We're on Revolution Radio, the number one listener supported talk radio on the net, so push the donate button. Or buy some merch maybe, yeah? And you can jump into the archives for free. Do that. And that merch is awesome. It's all the artworks done by a mad painter. Or we call it a mad painter. He is not crazy. He just does some exceptional work. So do check it out. Get something for yourself so you can listen to the show and support the station. But also, that little bit of pride. People, take it to work. Have a coffee from a mug. Don't have a coffee from the t-shirt. Wear the t-shirt out. People go, what's that? You go, that's probably the best station you have never heard of. So why don't you have a listen? Blah, blah, blah. Right, do that.
We should really sell towels.
Yeah, it's look. You get something out of it. The station gets something out of it, and everyone feels better for it. So, Mickey, this is show number 619.
9, 10, and 600.
And guess what? We are halfway through the 2 hours, and this is the beginning of the second hour, if you don't know. And we are still talking about, hopefully concluding today, the hypothesis and the epiphany. We began this at show number 600, so if you want to go back and start listening, you can. They're chopped up into little hourly segments, so you can listen to them either through the station's archives or through our YouTube channel. And if you're in the YouTube and listening to this, please do like, share, subscribe, and do all those things. Click the bell and talk to people about it if you can. That'd be great. Now, Mackie, I think we're up to the double slit experiment.
I think we are, yes. So just a very quick recap, just very quick for the last, because this is the last show on this. So again, 7 years, well, actually 10 years ago now, maybe 11 in fact, we established that there is an escape from this, I don't want to call it a prison per se, but from this place, right, where we are, where we find ourselves. There is an escape. And we've told you how that could be affected. We talked about pineal gland activation, pineal gland training, pineal gland, I guess, wish fulfillment to some extent, because ultimately it seems that thought forms the basis for all reality at the very final level, it seems. All right, and then, but we never addressed why we're here. Right, we're here, and we can probably get out of it. It's very hard. It's tough. The lifestyle that you have to choose to get out of here is really, really hard. A few people are said to have managed it. We're talking about the Buddhas, the enlightened masters, etc., that had ascetic lifestyles. The gurus.
Not Heaven's Gate.
Sorry.
Not Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, not those guys. No, you're not gonna hit you right on a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's not gonna happen. No, but being able to shed all attachments is a critical thing to really free yourself. Because if you don't, then it seems, from the evidence at least that we have found, and not just us, that you're condemned to reincarnation, rebirth, right? And be clear here, please. This is important. The Christians that say that when you die you go to heaven have it wrong, according to Christians, according to the Bible. There is no heaven waiting for you as you die. Now, if you read the Bible closely, okay, and I'm addressing the Christian because it's a fairly large contingent of believers on the planet, a billion or so, maybe 2 billion. So they all believe that when they die they go to heaven. That's not the case at all. What it does say in the Bible is this. Everybody is dead, right? Everybody's dead, they're all dead. And then comes the judgment day, finally the return of Christ, the second coming, etc., right? And all the righteous people, they might be taken up in a rapture or not, depends, right? But everybody comes back to life. Everybody comes back to life. Okay, and the ocean will give up its dead, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening. I wonder what happens to people that die in space if we ever get there. Anyway, so they're all brought back, and they're brought back to Judgment Day. There are two books. There's the Book of Life and the Book of Death. Right? And if your name is not written in the Book of Life, right, meaning at that point when you're resurrected, right, you will then be cast into the lake of fire, which is your second death. They're not going to torture you there forever and ever, so there's no hell either. Okay, there's no heaven, there's no hell right now. Okay, so they just cast you into the lake of fire, and that's your second death. The only three people that are kept there forever and tortured, according to the Bible, is the beast, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. Those are the three that are kept in the lake of fire to be tormented forever and ever and ever. Blah blah blah. Everybody else who's failed to show up in the Book of Life, and I'm not sure what the criteria are to get in there. Right? Everybody who's failed, they will be thrown into the lake of fire, and that will be the second death. So they will die. Everybody else, yep, they can go up into heaven. So that's what Christians believe. But that's what they. Well, no, sorry, that's not what they believe. They believe something else entirely, but that's what they should believe because that's in fact what it says. What we are saying is something quite different, and it's a huge chunk of people who believe this as well. That we are in fact on a wheel of reincarnation, coming back over and over and over. And a lot of people, say, "Oh no, it's to learn a lesson. It's to perfect ourselves. We every time we're born here. I'm not going to buy that at all. I don't think that's at all the purpose of it. And the only way you can get out of this cycle of reincarnation is by becoming completely detached. But it's not to make you learn more and become better. It is really just so you don't become attached. You have to detach yourself from all attachments. And that's why, in fact, this is funny, right? And this is where I get a lot of hate, I'm sure, but I believe that Jesus was teaching Buddhist principles in Judea 2,000 years ago. He said it is easier for a camel to pass through the needle of an eye than it is for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is very simply that a rich person, and again, funnily enough, it's also in the Christmas carols, right? When Marlowe visits Scrooge, all the attachments we've forged throughout life to this place, like are the chains that actually bind us to this place, and then force us into,
like Scrooge,
into reincarnation. So that's actually what you can look around and you find the themes of this everywhere. Okay, so that's what we think, because there's massive evidence now, truly for reincarnation. Now, but you will say, there's also evidence for near-death experience and going to heaven. Well, maybe and maybe not. Only Christians see heaven. Near-death experience from people that don't have that belief system are quite different. So I believe it is whatever your cultural artifacts are. See in those moments. And we also know that certain substances are released into your brain, in fact from the pineal gland and other glands within the brain, that could give you these experiences, maybe to make your passing easier, as it were, like a self-medicated brain. Whereas the evidence that we have for reincarnation is quite astounding. When little children, very far removed from a place or even the person they were, and having all the information that they have. I mean, that's. I'm not sure how you would fake that. You put a lot of effort into it, but then a lot of people put a lot of effort into it because a lot of kids, before the age of 3 or 4, have this kind of recall, which is again quite astounding. And again, not a lot of people overall, because I believe there's a cleansing process in between here where we are robbed of our previous life's memories, but somehow, obviously, these kids retained it. And it seems the more traumatic the death was, the more likely potentially for you to retain some memories, including scarring. So in some instances, there was a correlation between an injury that they had to sustain that killed them, and a birthmark or some other kind of a mark on the skin to indicate how they had died. So that's something that's really quite interesting as well. So anyway, so sorry, I just needed to say this because it's important to understand that in the hypothesis we believe that ultimately, similar to Buddhists and Hindus and Taoists, that our goal must be to escape the cycle of rebirth. Very, very tough to do. Very tough to do. We were hoping, this was before COVID, we were hoping that there would be an awareness cascade, a rapture, if you're Christian that way, like that would allow us to escape en masse, because I can't imagine a humanity reaching ascension. It's just not. I don't think it's
under
feasible.
any current governments.
Yeah, correct.
It's not going to work.
And then we looked at the Fibonacci sequence and built an algorithm and compared that to population numbers, and it appeared that the Fibonacci number closest to us at the moment, or at that moment, was
7.7.
7.76 billion.
Yeah.
And there's another algorithm in which I incorporated the golden ratio, and that number was also 7.76 billion. And then we looked, well, when are we actually going to reach that population number?
Yeah.
Okay, so it happened to be 2020. That's interesting. So 2011, 2012, we talked about this and said, look, this something may very well happen in 2020, but something will prevent us from ascending, because it has in the past. I mean, there was these civilization-ending events have come about on this planet more than once. I'm convinced, right? Now, but it always bothered me. I said, why did this happen, right? And the simple answer escaped me. I didn't know why it happened, and then I realized, oh well, maybe it was to stop the ascension. It was to stop the awareness cascade. It was to stop us leaving this place.
Could have been.
Yeah, that's why these civilizations were brought to an end, killing or otherwise stopping the ascension, killing many enough to create whatever scenario was needed to keep us here. And then 2019 rolled around, nothing. We heard of this flu out of China. Yeah, whatever. We had heard of many flus. There was a bird flu, and there was the other flus, and the swine flu. So we didn't really pay attention. And then all of a sudden, 2020, the first couple of months of 2020 roll around, and we realized, oh, this is something else entirely, or at least was portrayed that way.
Yeah.
And we go into almost 3 years of an almost completely unprecedented global lockdown, creating enough fear and uncertainty to prevent, in my opinion,
Yes.
the ascension event.
So.
And as we learned,
Yep.
the Aboriginals of Australia in 2020 went to Uluru to perform a sacred ritual to aid the, I guess, what we call the awareness cascade.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we hadn't lived in a constant state of fear and more importantly, uncertainty during those days, there may very well have been an ascension. Maybe not everybody, but maybe a good chunk of people might have. Well, I don't know what would happen. Would they have disappeared? I really don't know. I have no idea. But certainly, the timing is uncanny. And you could say, well, it's just confirmation bias. No. We said this years before it happened. Years.
That's right.
Years. On the record. You can look at the shows. You can listen to the shows. Years. And we, in fact, I think it was mentioned, biological rather than anything else, because it's cheapest. Because at that point,
yeah,
I was
we
still
said that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was still convinced that a lot of people would die. I mean, a lot of people would die. I was still convinced that that was the way to do it. Little did I understand the importance of spirituality and the overall psychic health of the human race. And yes, while many people died, and the excess death numbers are in fact significant, right? Not enough died, in my opinion, to stop the ascension. That was stopped by the fear and uncertainty that was seeded in people's minds. Because it was the uncertainty. And if you cast your mind back to the pandemic, we were given messages diametrically opposed to each other during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Simple example: don't wear masks. You could wear masks. You must wear masks. That was just a simple example, right? Or you can't leave the house, or you can leave the house or you have to be 2 meters. And recently, Fauci, I think, said, "Oh no, we don't know if 2 meters was safe. It was completely made up. We had no idea.
That's right.
Completely made up. 3 meters, 10 meters, 1,000 meters. Who knows, right?" So all these things just completely arbitrary, but they made you uncertain. And the fear. I mean, I remember this myself, and I'm not easily swayed. I was shopping, and I heard this person coughing, and I cringed. I go, "Oh, shoot!" I felt uneasy, and I wanted this person to just go away. And the shop owner came out and told the person to move on because they didn't have a face mask and all that, whatever, right? But it got to me. It got to me, and I should know better, right? But it got to me. It really, on a very visceral level, it got to me, because it was such a beautifully played out strategy.
Oh, it was to the heart of every one of us.
Yeah,
is how they played it. It was
they
played
didn't
well.
give you facts either. They
That's
didn't
right.
give facts. All the facts. I mean, we had daily briefing. We had in Australia here, in New South Wales, where we are, Dave and I. We had daily briefings from our premier, the person that's in charge of our state,
Our
like, I guess like a
elected
governor
officials,
in the states or something like that, right? Or a Landespresident or whatever. And daily briefings, and I know I watched them religiously. I would watch them.
Me too.
You know why? Why? Because I was uncertain. I didn't know.
It had like
Right,
the
because-
health minister and science people and
Yeah.
all these, all there backing up.
Because at that point, I still thought it would be necessary for a lot of people to die. Right? That's in
right.
my mind. I was still waiting for I was
You're
waiting
preparing
for bodies.
yourself. You knew.
Yeah.
that the
I was
idea
waiting for
was
bodies in the
to-
street. I was
That's
waiting for
right.
mass graves. I was
Yeah.
waiting for people to be dumped into Sydney Harbour.
Yeah.
I don't know what, right?
Yeah.
But I was waiting. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary.
Mhm.
Something more sinister was taking place, as we have outlined before. So, two things happened. One, the fear and uncertainty was enough. I mean, yes, a lot of deaths, but these deaths were necessary to sell the story, right? So a lot of people did die, right? and are still dying. But what is even more sinister, the second thing, is that the virus or the vaccines or whatever, who knows what, seems to have affected our fertility.
Oh yeah.
Certainly male fertility. There's 5 or 6 independent studies which we quoted here, by the way. Not our studies, just studies that happened in the world, and
That's
we're just
right.
repeating
That's right.
what they found. So this is not medical advice by any
It is
stretch,
not. We're not medical people.
right? But we're just reporting what these studies found, and they found that if you had a severe case of SARS-CoV-2, it would affect your fertility as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see people also dropping dead here and everywhere. And I mean, is this long COVID? Is that what it is? Because we do know that SARS-CoV-2 affects your organs. It also affects your brain. It affects a whole bunch of stuff, right? So, and then we started thinking about, well, okay, so clearly this is not going to be a massive population drop all of a sudden. And it became a lot clearer to me what is more likely to happen. This is what's more likely to happen is this. Over time, our population numbers will decline because it is easier to shut down a civilization slowly or downsize it,
Yes.
right? Over time, maybe 50, maybe 100 years, it doesn't really matter, rather than having a catastrophic failure of civilization, which I think happened in the past. I think the last time this happened, 15, 16,000 years ago, whatever,
Yep.
maybe longer, there was a catastrophic shutdown. We see stop, like tools down events, right? Like
Yeah,
massive
that's right.
blocks never finished carving, etc.
Yep.
And then we have stories of floods and like whatever the event was last time was catastrophic, killed a lot of people. That's clearly not what the parasites want now. They're gonna ramp it down because the level of civilization we've achieved, indoor plumbing, penicillin, etc. It's all quite comfortable, right? Television. So and again, if I were a parasite, I want to keep that level of civilization. And if I sort of slowly, downsize it over time, great. China had a net drop of population of 2 million.
That's right.
Like in real numbers, they had a net population drop of 2 million people from this year to last.
Mm-hmm.
2 million, never happened before, right? Various reasons, of course, the one-child policy, etc., that's messing. But I believe that we will see more of this, and that's being seeded in the news as well. That we should expect a drop in population numbers, right? Not just because we've got aging populations, etc. It's because our fertility, I believe, is going to be affected. Now that's where we are, right? Sorry, bit of a long recap, 20 minutes, but and then it sort of it hit me. It hit me as to why we're here, right? Because we spoke about quantum decoherence. We went into some detail last time. I'm not going to go over that again. But then also the observer effect. We talked about that, right? And uncertainty principle. And now we're back to the double slit experiment. This is really, really important. The double slit experiment really is what triggered me. Dave, why don't you take us through the article here?
Yeah, I will. And for those of you on YouTube, I have a slide deck. It describes it, but it'll make more sense when you hear it. This article here is by Avery Thompson, August 11th, 2016. Do you remember the double slit experiment? He asks. It's one of the weirder experiments in modern physics and cuts to the heart of the weirdness of quantum mechanics. Basically, waves that pass through two narrow slots, these are parallel slits in a sheet of metal, will form an interference pattern on the screen. If you're on YouTube, you just saw that one. However, this is true for all waves, whether they're light waves, water waves, or sound waves. They will interfere with each other and show an interference pattern on the wall behind it as the peaks add up and the troughs contract. The heights, when a peak and trough go together, they neutralize it, so there is nothing. I hope that makes sense to you. But light isn't just a wave, it's also a particle called a photon. So what happens if you shoot a single photon at the double slits? Turns out, even though there's only one photon, it still forms an interference pattern, as if the photon travels through both slits simultaneously. And I'll go on. But wait, because it gets even weirder. As an episode of the PBS's Space-Time shows, just by observing the double slit experiment, the behavior of the photon changes. The idea behind the double slit experiment is that even if the photons are sent through the slits one at a time, there is still a wave present to produce the interference pattern. The wave is a wave of probability because the experiment is set up so that the scientists don't know which of the two slits any individual photon passes through. But if they try to find out by setting up a little detector in front or behind either of the slits to determine which slit the photon really goes through, the interference pattern doesn't show up at all. In fact, what happens is you just get two painted slots, just as though you were firing macro world bullets through there. Right? I hope it makes sense. No matter what the scientists do, even if they try, if they try anything to observe the photons, the interference pattern fails to emerge. It just becomes to a particle pattern. Now, it gets even weirder than that. A group of scientists tried a variation on the double slit experiment called the delayed choice experiment. The scientists placed a special crystal at each slit. The crystal splits any incoming photons into a pair of identical photons. One photon from this pair should go on to create the standard interference pattern, while the other travels to a detector. Perhaps with this setup, physicists might successfully find a way to observe the logic-defying behavior of photons. But it still doesn't work. And here's the really weird part. It doesn't work regardless of when that detection happens. Even if the second photon is detected after the first one hits the screen, it still ruins the interference pattern. This means that observing a photon can change events that have already happened. You've just got to remember that. Scientists are still unsure how exactly this whole thing works. It's one of the greatest mysteries of quantum mechanics. In fact, it is the great mystery of quantum mechanics. Perhaps someone, someday, will find out why, and they'll get a Nobel Prize.
Huh. Oh yeah. And a Nobel Prize is $1 million, just in case you're cash strapped. Just go and find it. No, but see, this is really important to understand. Now, last time we spoke about quantum decoherence, which is really what this is. So as soon as the wave function is no longer observed, right? So we put a little detector on the slits, behind, in front, doesn't really matter. Yep. The wave function, which has in it all the possibilities for the photon, right, on the screen, it has just the one outcome. It collapses. It's called the collapse of the wave function, quantum decoherence. Decoherence. What scientists are saying is, well, now it can't be proven in an experiment. I don't know how it could be proven, but what they're saying is, well, yes, it collapses into what we can perceive in reality, as it were, but the other outcomes, all the other points, all the other sections of the wave still exist. We just can no longer observe them, right? Now, which of course opens the door to the multiverse and Everett's. Yeah, well, it's Everett's many worlds theory, right? Which is fair, because if these outcomes still exist, then they must exist in another world, right? Where another outcome collapsed the position of the photon or whatever particle. In fact, we don't even throw particles at it anymore. We know it works on larger objects as well, which is really very strange. So that's really odd. We know that it collapses, right? But only, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but only if you look at it. Only if you measure it. Okay? And the funny thing is, Dave has just said, but you can even look at it later. What? Yeah, you don't have to look at it. If you look at it later, then it doesn't really matter when you did it. It changed something that has already happened.
That's right.
What?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
How it doesn't look? It makes no sense in any world that it grew up in. Okay.
I'm going to say, Mackie, that it makes sense if we're in an artificial universe. If this is not real, and the photon itself as a particle is programmed in this existence to behave to what we expect, and then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when. If I wear a pair of UV filtering sunglasses and I'm just outside. I'm outside, so the daylight, there's photons coming at my eyes from everywhere, it doesn't matter. But they all originated from the sun. That means that there's paired photons that could be going out in any direction from the sun. So 360 squared, right? In any direction into the universe, which its pair is also now polarized in a particular direction. Isn't that crazy?
And as this is what Dave just described as, of course, entanglement, which makes even, I wouldn't say less. It makes as little sense as the decoherence, the quantum decoherence, because it implies if you entangle two particles, right? In fact, we've now entangled the tardigrade, I think.
We have.
If you entangle two particles, no matter how far apart, nowhere, what you do to one, the other will experience simultaneously. Not with a delay, not a little bit later, not a little bit sooner, at exactly the same moment. And we've now proven that experimentally as well.
Yeah.
Now, that implies three things. One, we don't really fully understand the nature of the universe at all.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
No,
we have no idea. Okay? Two, maybe there is no such thing as distance. Now we get to that in a second. I'll go back to that. Or three, the structure of space is not as we see it, and there are underlying or overlying or intertwining spaces where distance is in fact non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
So there's distance in the space that we see, but there's no distance in the spaces up, down, whatever, left, right, that we can't see, right? Where this information, because that's what it is, seems to travel.
And if I'm a Star Trek fan, so I would call that subspace.
Yeah, of course you
in
could.
their universe. Yeah,
of course you could. But even in subspace, funnily enough, in Star Trek, there's still a distance to traverse, whereas this implies no distance. So, going back to my second point, though, that says that there is no distance at all. Like we just perceive it. Now that, of course, implies that there's no time, because all time is really, right? Is there's no spoon. That's right. Well, there's no spoon. There really isn't, because a spoon is mostly empty space, as we discussed.
That's right.
Prior, right? But if there's no space, if there's no space, no distance, right? No distance, no space, then there's no time, because all time really is motion through space, motion through a medium.
You sound like James T. Kirk then. Motion through space.
Motion through space. This is Captain Snook study 553.289. But because if let's say we freeze the universe, it's frozen. Whoosh. So all the motion. And this is not just you in your little room not moving anymore. This is all the planets are frozen in place. The galaxies are frozen in place.
Wow.
Nothing moves in the universe. It's now sitting in a jelly.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yep.
Nothing. And there's no, because there's nothing moving. There's also no thought.
Oh.
Because thought is still
things moving.
Yeah, it's still a physical manifestation of our brains, or so we think. Maybe it's not true. I don't know. But nothing moves. Zero movement in the universe. There is no time. There's no time because there's no motion.
And that's because our current physics suggests it actually ties space-time together.
Correct.
So the position and time are relative to each other.
Yeah. We're living in a so-called space-time continuum, right?
Yes.
Is that true? I don't know.
Not.
That's why I want to build a quasi. What's it called? Quasi-ref mirror. Quasi-ref mirror, yeah. Because that apparently reverses the flow of time. But the point is this: we seem to have no. My first point stands. We have no idea how the universe really works. We just don't know. We found out a few things. We know this. 98% is missing. Well, no, we don't really know if there's time. We don't know the nature of time. Gravity. Well, what is gravity really? We don't really know, right? But it seems that torsion physics holds at least partial answers to all our questions. Torsion physics, remember that, is going to be critically important moving forward. And it's also, funnily enough, Dave, you don't hear much about it. Two things you don't hear about: torsion physics, okay,
yep,
and the ether.
Yeah.
The ether. Now, funnily enough, Kozyrev, as Tesla, both believed in the existence of the ether. Now, I watched a documentary recently which says if Kozyrev had called the ether quantum foam, thank you very much, that was mine, then he would have been taken more seriously by the West. Because right now the Western scientists are not looking at anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, zero. Okay. So sorry, that's where we are right now.
It is.
That's where we are. So just one more quick reminder of quantum superposition, then we get to pretty much the end of the show. Why don't you take us to the quantum superposition, Dave?
Sure, no dramas whatsoever, Mickey. Quantum superposition is a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics. It states, I'll fix it in post, it states that, much like waves in classical physics, any two or more quantum states can be added together, superposed, and the result will be another valid quantum state. And conversely, that every quantum state can be represented as a sum of two or more other distinct states. Mathematically, it refers to a property of solutions to the Schrödinger equation. Since the Schrödinger equation is linear, any linear combination of solutions will also be a solution. An example of physically observable manifestation of superposition is interference peaks from an electron wave in a double-slit experiment. Ooh.
That's right. That's right. Now, and at that point,
a lot
I
of
don't
people
know
just close
what-
the textbook on it and go, I'm just going to go back to Einstein's physics, thank you.
no, I'll do you one better. Let's go back to Aristotle. That'll do me, thank you. Or the Platonic bodies, the golden ratio. Just give me something I can build a house on. But okay, so why did we harp on about this quantum stuff so much? Why is this important? Why? Who cares? Who cares, right? Who cares? I mean, this is really much. That's how I learned physics back in the day in grammar school, or even year 9 or 10 maybe, I can't remember. I know we discussed it, but light is both a wave and a particle. Just remember that. That was it.
I did that at my parent-teacher night.
Oh, did you?
I told him, I said to my daughter's science teacher, I said, does she like science? And this is my eldest, the teacher. And he goes, yeah. I said, that's really good. Have you've taught them about the double slit experiment. Oh yeah, wave's a particle, and light's a wave and a particle. Really? Is that all the extent to which you describe it? I guess what else is there? And I described it. And he's like, uh-oh. I could see him. I'm in deep now.
Oh, man. See, but this is the thing, though, right?
And it's like, no, he didn't know.
You know what school is meant to do, Dave? School is meant to teach, yes, absolutely. But it's also meant to awaken curiosity. It is meant to awaken the nascent sense of the unexplored that we all have, right? I mean, what's going on there? I don't know. It's meant to convey a sense of mystery as well. Because science is continuous exploration. It's continuously adding to the store of our knowledge. It's not. I know we teach it as though it were a jelly, frozen in time, right? Here it is. The textbook is 100 years old. Just learn it. No. You need to teach science, especially science. Just so you all remember it. Yeah.
What science?
In a way that encourages the students to ask questions and explore. And guess what? And I know this is hard for a teacher. Some of the students' questions you won't be able to answer because we haven't been able to answer them yet. We don't know. Just say we don't know. Challenge your students. Say, hey, Mr. Student, why don't you become the guy that figures it out? Right?
Oh, that's good.
Right? You be the person, because I don't know, and none of the other scientists in the world know, right? So this could be something where you could figure it. I mean, if you're curious, just do it. But
Sounds
we don't
like my
teach
physics
science.
professor.
Yeah, but we don't, especially physics, right? We don't teach science like that. At least science was never taught to me like this. History, yes. I had some fantastic history teachers. Philosophy, yes. Politics, yes. I had some fantastic teachers, lecturers at university, etc. Science, no.
Mickey, if one of my science professors ever said to me, how many states of water are there? And he says, we know of 3. You know, a gas, a liquid, and a solid.
See, that would be awesome, right?
There's 7 or more now. I think more. You go 7.
Correct.
You go, no, there isn't.
Yeah.
Let's just measure the electrical properties of the water as we heat it up, and I think we'll get there, right? That would have been the best experiment ever.
Correct. And one thing we know as well now, water, and we had a show on water, everybody.
Yeah, we did.
Look it up if you want. We also know now that water is comprised of two
Different
distinct
structural.
Yeah,
elements.
No, I'm not talking about hydrogen and oxygen. I'm talking about the way that water H2O, is composed and the properties within normal water. I'm talking about everyday water is 2 different structures.
That's right.
And
they say that's why it's probably the best thing in the universe to score at other things, to be able to scrape and score and store in solution because it has these two structures. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's so far it's the best solvent that we know, but also it's the only substance that we know that increases its volume both when it heats and when it cools.
And it's non-compressible.
The only substance, right? And guess what? There'd be no life on this planet if it didn't. What? If water froze from the bottom up?
If when you compressed it, if it shrank when it was cooler, and then the weight of the water itself would cause it to freeze anyway.
Yeah.
In the depths of the ocean. And it would freeze from the bottom up. Yeah, totally.
Yes. And that would be not very good for life. At least as we know. At least as we know, right? Now, okay, so we look, and I find it really, because the thing is this, right? And sorry but we are finishing the show cycle today. But we look at the world differently now, I think, Dave and I, even differently to before we started the show.
Totally.
Because I just thought we had all the answers. Oh, sorry. I thought we had a lot more answers than not.
Mm-hmm.
And then, simple thing, and this was fairly recent, looked at water, and we don't know. We don't know why it does what it does. We just don't. I mean, what? No, we don't know. We really don't know why it behaves the way it does. And I found this astounding. I mean, we are like 70% water, right? And that means that we don't know how 70% of our body works at all.
That's right.
Not really, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little scary. And 98% of the universe is missing. We don't know how 70% of our body works. And you look at the gigantic holes.
We're going south.
We're struggling here. And you know what I think, though, what could help us plug some of those holes in our physical sciences pursuit is spirituality and the pursuit of what we like to call the paranormal, which is, of course, the normal. It's the normal. There's no such thing as paranormal or supernatural. It's just natural and normal because it's part of our world. We just choose to define it a certain way. But let me talk about the Epiphany that with which we shall close this show cycle. It still doesn't give us the ultimate answer. However, this is what came to mind. This reality is dependent on the number of people actively believing in it. We are here to ensure the continued existence of this reality. To put simply, the proposition is that we, sentient beings, are here in order to ensure that there is quantum decoherence. We are here to stabilize or maybe create this reality. We are here to ensure that this reality continues to exist. And maybe there's a certain number of us required. I don't know. Maybe it's a universal thing. Maybe all sentient beings in this universe, in this multiverse, are there to make sure it enjoys a continued existence. Why that is, I don't know. I don't know why it's important. I have no idea. But that, I think, may be why we are here. This universe requires sentience. This multiverse might require sentience to exist. This multiverse might. And there's a really great book, The Self-Aware Universe. And people have philosophized that the universe gave birth to us to become self-aware, etc., etc. Sure. But again, why? Right? Why is the question? We don't know yet. But however, this truth, right? Because in my head a whole bunch of things they rattle around. This sort of came to me in looking at two other odd things. American money has got two Latin phrases that I never really understood until I understood quantum mechanics and especially quantum decoherence. If you look on a dollar bill, right, there's a pyramid, and there are two Latin phrases, and this is again hiding it in plain sight. So there are people out there, right, parasites and otherwise. They're parasites, and they're also people that try to preserve knowledge, but they're hiding in plain sight. If it's on the money, I believe it's the parasites that put it there.
That's right.
Two phrases. One is ordo ab chaos, and the other one is e or ex pluribus unum. Now, ordo ab chaos means order out of chaos. Yeah, I did Latin in my misspent grammar school years. Order out of chaos, which is really what quantum decoherence is.
Exactly.
And a pluribus unum, out of many one, that's also, you can't spell it any clearer than that, that's also quantum decoherence.
It is.
Okay? And the dollar arguably has become the most important currency in the world, so everybody would see a dollar bill at some point in their life and be exposed to that truth. Is that what it in fact refers to? Order out of chaos and out of many one. To ensure that this reality, because this is sort of mind washing as well, we expect quantum decoherence to produce a certain thing. Our biological makeup, and this is the funny thing. Most alien entities, let's call them, right, are constructed in very similar ways to us, meaning they have a front and a back. There are few that don't, but most of them that we encounter, they have, assuming forward-facing side and a backward-facing side, they have the limbs, etc., a head, a face, eyes, etc. And does that mean that in this reality, maybe even in the multiverse, we are already biologically pre-programmed to have a certain view of the world, which is in fact, more or less linear, even circular. But it's
symmetry.
It's a progression though. It's a movement in one direction.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Be it linear or circular, doesn't matter, but it's still moving in one direction. Whereas in reality, well, that doesn't make any sense at all, because you could move in any which one direction that you want. Why are we limiting ourselves to thinking in those tiny terms?
Yeah.
But so are we here then, Davey? Are we here to ensure that the quantum decoherence occurs? Because that's all we do. We observe reality. That's all we do all day long. That's all we do, buddy.
Is that part of that being trapped here, right? So
yeah.
Using the premise that the universe has created us so that we keep it alive, is very similar, Becky, to that Star Trek episode where that crazy AI trapped people there only for its own entertainment.
Yes.
And only so it could stay alive.
Yes. And if you watch Loki,
yes,
that's exactly what the time authority is for, to ensure there's only one time stream.
Yeah, right.
Funny, isn't it? How art imitates reality sometimes.
I was watching an episode of the new Quantum Leap. I don't know how new it is, but it's new to me.
Oh, it's last year. Yeah, it's new.
Yeah. So, and I thought that's pretty good. All the cast has changed. The premise has changed. Right? There's evil characters in it now. You can't just have people existing and what was that SBS program where the guy would just interview people randomly in the street?
Oh,
yeah.
Actually, I saw him in Hyde Park once.
Oh, really?
Andrew Denton.
No, not Andrew Denton.
Oh,
he's the largest kind of man with a beard, and he would just go up to people and talk to them randomly. And it was on SBS. I forget what it's called. Geez, it was a good show, right? And I'm watching some of those old programs of that. Yeah. And there was a segue there somewhere, and I think I lost it because they had to over-explain the SBS show. For me, the thing that I think was most extraordinary about watching this, what's it called? Was how much we've changed as individuals. The kind of common sense that people were uttering then, because they're not engrossed in 15-second videos on their smart device. That's the TikTok generation, for that matter. But the individuals seem to be able to have a very wide-ranging conversation and explain things very well. Now, I don't know how much footage ended up on the cutting room floor for SBS, but there was there's definitely a change. We've shortened attention span. I think we're incapable of constructing sentences as we did back then. Even people who were unemployed in the street that he was talking to had a better grasp of grammar and conversational skills than we do today.
Oh, I have no doubt. I mean, look at us. No offense.
Yeah. So, look, as far as, decoherence and there's things, and it's on the money. Mickey, you said on the money, and you're right. You're on the money when you're saying it's right there on the money.
Oh, yeah.
I had to make that joke.
I won't say what else it is, but I sent you a little link there.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'll check it out. I did see something on the website that I got that first photo from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that
so
would be
no, I get
right.
that. How does it all fit together, Mackie? This is the thing that you and I talk about this. So,
yeah.
with what we thought was going to happen, then it was stopped. In a world where science is kind of catching up to, and I have one point here, the science was kind of catching up to where we're at, and then got totally confused by what it found. And it's the same as, you see a vertex not joining correctly in the corner of a room in a video game, and you tell the developer, hey, you've got a double vertex there, so avoid it. So the corner single point of joining of the two walls, there's 2 points there, and one's joining to so there's a gap. But for us, if we kind of looked into that gap, we would the no clip world behind the walls. That's kind of what's happened as far as quantum mechanics, this world of the nano world that should just behave the same as everything else, but so doesn't make a lick of sense to everybody else. And if I'd gotten off the reality bandwagon back in Newton's time, I swear I'd have a great time. I would live happily ever after back then.
Yeah,
not having to know all this stuff. But my last point, and I'll give it to you for the end. I watched the video where two people who were deeply religious, they're looking up the night sky and they're looking at it going, well, some of these stars are millions of years away at the speed of light, which means it would take them millions of years, the light, for them to get here. But if the Earth is only 6,000 years, and on day 6 or 7 or whatever, God said there must be light, there was already plants that seemed to all grow simultaneously on one of the days, and they said, if God made all the light, it still wouldn't be here. And I thought that was an extraordinary revelation from this poor hapless person realizing that the time doesn't work like that. You can't just make the universe and the sun and all this light everywhere suddenly already be here. It has to have traveled for a million years to get here, depending on how far away the sun is, of course. There's different light sources. And I thought that was grand. But Meki, over to you.
No. It's there's a lot of knowledge that still exists out in the world, right? And it's just it's up to us to decode it if you can, right? It's not that hard to do if you put your mind to it, but it certainly seems as though these hints exist all around us. And someone once said that even the parasites, or especially the parasites, like to leave clues in the open to I guess to bait us.
They radio ahead all their intentions anyway.
Well, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Right, so it comes through in popular culture, TV shows, books, comic books, etc., and it's all there really, if you know how to look. And we are forgetting every day more and more how to look and what to look for, and we like to call people that are looking crazy and conspiracy theorists, etc., which is fine. You can call people what you like. Doesn't make it true. But we know that. Okay, so conspiracy is an English word. Every language on the planet has a word that is the equivalent to conspiracy. So we can assume that conspiracies are in fact something that happens. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a word for it. Okay, just let's be semantic for just a second here. So, and if somebody has a suspicion that there might be conspiracy, they're by definition a conspiracy theorist. Yes, correct. Of course, there's the time, but this has now become a completely unacceptable and nutty term that nobody wants to be associated with. Sorry, Dave, there you go.
Thanks. Guess what? That's the end of Dave and Mackey's second hour of Shiny Side Out, episode 619. Stay tuned for Jam Bear's awesome show after hours, and we'll catch you 7 a.m. Tuesday and Thursday Eastern for Plato's Cave. See you next week. Take care. And as Becky says,